Hello, dear friends and colleagues. I'm really happy to be here today and welcome you in our session dedicated to the result of the half-a-year project, which was conducted by WorldSkills Russia together with the Global Education Future and with the major support of the WorldSkills International, member countries of the WorldSkills and Global Industrial Partners. Actually, this is how you look everything here. It's not like how our studio gonna look like during the session itself. So we're gonna pretty soon switch to its actual view. But before that, I want to share with you one story. So today in the morning, I wake up and I make a post in my Instagram page with the screenshots, of the several sessions, screenshots from the different plenary session, with the notice that it looks like most of them were actually inspired by the Star Wars. Because, I'm sure you participated in such sessions yourself. It's all look like spacey, like everything happening in some galaxy far, far away, and with some robots and lasers and so on and so on. So while we were preparing this session, I asked my colleagues to please, guys, let's not repeat this pattern. Let's make it differently. So we decided to make the vision of the session, how you're now gonna see how it's gonna look like. Please, let's switch to the actual look of our studio. Yeah, so it's now, in our case, as you can see, it does not look like Star Wars at all. And this morning, I'm not kidding, guys, I seriously cannot see the irony that the whole report, which we're going to present today, is named Future Skills for the 2020s and New Hope. Yeah, so partly I think we named this report this way because during this pandemic month, it was really a source of hope for us and for the whole of the more than 800 experts from 49 countries who participated in this research. And as I already said, the report was conducted by WorldSkills Russia with the support of WorldSkills International. And actually this year, WorldSkills International celebrates its 70 years anniversary. I think we all agree that it's a pretty impressive number, but despite the 70 years of history, the WorldSkills continue being the reflective, self-learning organization. And this report is actually the sign that we are ready to face the challenges which world and technologies and even major challenges as a pandemic bring to us. What also important that this report is based on the experience and expertise of our expert community, of our member countries and our industrial and global partners. So today you're gonna see the different expert comments on actually how it was done and why it is important to organize such type of work. So since 2015 in WorldSkills Russia, we were always trying to make this work simultaneously by theoretical work as a foresight, research, brainstorming by experts and futurists, and also at the same time, starting from the WorldSkills High Tech in 2015, we were trying to implement future skills on practice in the actual competition. And today we're going to show you some examples of such competition, including in a hybrid format, which were organized despite the pandemic as well. So the whole report is actually 230 pages, so we're really sorry for you guys that it was so long. Our speakers and experts who are going to speak today already saw it, but in your case, we really hope that this session can work as a teaser for this research. So if you're going to be, after our presentation, after our discussion, if it's going to be interesting for you to learn more about the details, I hope that during the holiday time, Christmas celebration and so on, you can find a few hours to sit with a nice cup of cocoa or coffee and read it deeply and learn something from this. So before we actually gonna begin, I want to ask to show the video from the president of the WorldSkills International, Mr. Chris Humphries, who unfortunately cannot be with us today, but it's great that he was able to make this video as an inspiration to all of us. Please.
Hi, Kate, WorldSkills Russia colleagues, the team from Global Education Futures, WorldSkills members, international partners and friends. I'm so sorry that I'm unable to join you for today's presentation on the Future Skills 2.0 report. But I have a prior commitment with the International Body Shop Industry Seminar being held at the same time talking about future skills in the auto body industry. Now, the Future Skills 2.0 report being presented to you today is a fantastic example of collaborative work by a major WorldSkills member, in partnership with leading educationalists and futurists, and leveraging the knowledge, wisdom and experience of over 800 WorldSkills sectoral and education experts from across our global membership. Combining the expertise of leading-edge industry specialists and world-class vet teachers and trainers through the use of innovative research and foresight methodologies has produced a set of insights and analyses that really merit worldwide attention. They can and should help shape best practice in industry and professional and technical education over the next decade. I strongly encourage you all to read it in full. It is one of those rare documents in which profound ideas combine with excellent writing and stimulating graphics to create a very readable and engaging experience. It is my very great pleasure to commend this report to you and to hand over to Kate Loshkareva and the WorldSkills Russia and Global Education Futures teams to tell you more. Best wishes to you all for your forthcoming festive seasons and for a safer and more open and welcoming 2021. Thank you and enjoy this session.
Thank you, Chris. So also today with us, Mr. Baren Chakroun, the Director of Division for Policies and Lifelong Learning System from UNESCO. Baren, thank you for finding time in your busy schedule. I'm pretty sure that it was really hard to read all of the 230 pages that were sent to you, but maybe you still had a chance to look kind of through this, and you know that the UNESCO and the WorldSkills have a long history of cooperation working towards the updating of the education training system and how to bring innovation into the vet policies. So can you please share a few words about the importance of the future skills for the vet practices, and especially in this challenging year? So Baren, we can hear you now.
Oh dear.
Baren, can you hear us? Well, I'm afraid it's... Okay, I'm afraid it's not... well, it's not possible to avoid technical challenges with such type of technologies in our current times. It would be much better if we all can be physically together. But okay, Pavel, at least you're with me today, physically here, and I can see you. So in this case, let's proceed to the first part of the presentation of the report. And as I know, so you as a head of Global Education Future,
thank you very much.
Okay, so you can, we'll present this with Nick Graham, the co-founder of the Weaving Labs. Yeah? So please present the first part of the report, and then we're going to discuss actually how this changes in the world and technology is going to influence the education and labor market. Please.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm really glad to welcome everybody to this presentation, including the co-author of this report, Nick Graham, who wrote with me remotely and very actively in a distributed team that was located in over 10 different time zones, ranging from India to Toronto. So right now, I would like to briefly introduce you the results. Of course, as it was already mentioned, the report is really dense and it has a lot of different content in it. And in the report, we tried to explore the future of 7 key sectors, covering almost 90% of the world's economy and nearly 90% of the total employment of the world. So these are aggregated sectors ranging from manufacturing and engineering, construction and infrastructure, transportation, human and social services, ICT, creative sector, and really important sector that is relatively new to the work of WorldSkills, but is very traditional sector and very important for the world economy, is agriculture. And of course, an emerging sector connected to it is ecology. So to begin, I want to say that the motivation for our work was, of course, the shock that our societies around the globe experienced because of COVID, and the immediate reaction that came from different sectors of economy. A lot of people were temporarily or permanently laid off. A lot of businesses started to close, and many investment programs were frozen, and people were really concerned about the future. They were trying to understand whether we are facing a new depression and whether this means also that anticipated technological and societal change will be put on hold and we probably are going back to very depressing times, or whether there is that new hope there. So we wanted to explore it, and of course we wanted to explore it together with experts from all over the world. So in order to run this exploration, we invited over 300 people into the process called Foresight, which is a collective vision building where experts from different, let's say, positions within the sector come to the joint session and explore what the future of the sector could be. So we conducted this session for each of 7 sectors that we considered, and we also looked at how education and training in each of these sectors is going to look. What will be the changes needed? What will be the new methodologies, training approaches, and so on? And we wanted also to further explore and corroborate the findings of our Foresight sessions with surveys, which included 500 more experts from 49 countries, confirming, disconfirming, highlighting some of the findings of our report, which allowed us not only to give you the qualitative evidence, but also some quantitative estimations. And I will cover them in my presentation later on. So to begin, this is the typical result that we get for every sector. It's a very rich map of factors and future skills that are emerging in the sector in response to technological, social changes and economic business model changes that are happening in every sector. This is a sample from manufacturing and engineering sector, but we have this type of map of the future for every sector. And in addition to such maps, we also could obtain the list of key skills and job roles that are coming up in every sector in the beginning of the decade, towards the middle, and towards the end of the decade. What will be the key factors that are influencing every sector? What are the megatrends? How they are relating to megatrends that are shaping all sectors, such as digitalization or globalization? How these different sectors respond to them? How do they respond to scenarios that emerge throughout our Foresight sessions? For example, will they be influenced by urbanization or deurbanization that are happening around the world in different sectors? How this is going to influence them? Will they require more narrow specialists or more generalized specialists in their sector? So these are the questions we ask to every sector, and I want to give you some snippets of what we managed to find before moving to more generalized conclusions. So I'm going to talk about 3 types of factors and emerging job roles that we discovered. So the first one is that we realized as COVID becoming a kind of catalyzing factor for continuing Industry 4.0 revolution. The coming of new technologies, digitalization and automation. Indeed, we realized that because of the pandemic, more robotics, more automated solutions, more contactless solutions are coming into businesses. And really, we're experiencing a new wave of business model transformation built upon these technological solutions. So of course, if all kinds of robotics and cobots, this is robots that are collaborating with humans, are coming into play and become more like a mass market solution, this means that we need specialists who will be able to set them up, to operate them, to create architecture that helps different types of robots interact with each other in more and more increasingly roboticized facilities. So industrial Internet of Things is a new type of competence that is very important for setting up and managing this type of facilities. And even we need a new type of human trainers that are going to train these cobots and self-learning production lines in order to cooperate with human beings. But we also need to introduce a whole set of new generic skills that each worker in such environment need to build up. Some of them are technical, such as programming and cybersecurity. Others are more generic. They're related to how we are going to interact with these environments. Are we good at collaboration? Are we good at collective problem solving? That requires also our ability to go through this problem solving, facilitate conversations with each other. So we need both technological and human abilities to work in these new complex environments. The other example would come from ecology and the rising green economy. There is a very intense debate going on whether the new wave of economic growth that will come at some point after this pandemic crisis is over, will it be based on more cheap and less, let's say, ecologically positive solutions? Will people sacrifice, again, ecology for sake of restoring their economies? Or will we see more awareness that climate changes are real and represent a very severe danger for our society? That the risk of biosphere collapse is very serious, and this can represent an existential threat for our civilization. If that recognition comes with decision makers, with businesses, with policy makers, this means that we have to rebuild our economy in a new way. We have to create a new wave of green growth. So the consensus of our experts agreed that indeed this is going to happen. So this is a good news. Again, a new hope is coming, that we'll see the reboot of the economy around the idea of a new economic model built up as regenerative, the one that restores nature rather than extracts from it and destroys it, which means that we need different types of experts, both in technology and in working with complex environments that we are creating to support this work. So first of all, we need ecological material experts that will be able to introduce these materials into all kinds of manufacturing and construction industries. We need increasingly to have specialists that are able to analyze the whole life cycle of technologies, of products, and of constructions. And for example, design it in the way that after for example, the facility is used, it can be further reused, rebuilt, and repurposed. And we need to emphasize new types of alternative green solutions, including so-called low-tech. It's lesser known and traditional ecological knowledge solutions, which in fact can be one of the most sustainable solutions in the world. For example, using bamboo as an alternative to more modern building materials is really both regenerative, ecological, and economically efficient. So to use this type of materials, to use this type of processes, we also need to develop fundamental green skills for every worker who need to understand the climate change challenges, to understand what kind of practices and solutions can be applied in this sector, to understand what are these regenerative practices, the ones that support nature rather than destroy it. And of course, this also requires critical thinking, more ethical decisions, empathy. This means that we can relate to the problems of our society and nature and act from that compassion. And collaboration and participative design, which will allow us to create solutions that are really working both for us humans and for the planet. The third type of questions that we also explored relates to how technological progress impacts human beings and how we are coping with this. Of course, now in 2020, we all have an experience of what it means to live very intense online, lead very intense online work. which means that a lot of us are coping with stress, even burnouts coming from intensive operation in a digital workplace. So we realized that if this is going to continue, if this is in the new normal, we need to help people adapt to it. We need to create a new type of skills, and indeed this is coming into many businesses, well-being advisors, people who are caring more about the well-being of workers and design working processes and working environments in the way that is, let's say, human-friendly, human-supportive. We need to support digital workers in particular, rehabilitating them if they are impacted by working in these intense environments. We need to design user experiences and user interfaces that are considering the problems of mental safety and mental security in mind. In addition to these specific skills, we also need a whole range of fundamental skills that every worker should master, including so-called digital hygiene, and even digital fitness, some abilities that help us to use these digital tools in a very efficient way. We need to develop agility so that people become more flexible, more open, and are prepared to learn with each other. We need to develop emotional intelligence, which help us to relate with each other, support each other. And of course, the well-being cultivation starts from personal awareness about well-being and relevant skills that each of us needs to cultivate. So with this, I want to transfer to my colleague Nick Graham, who will talk about more general conclusions of this report. Please.
Thank you. Can you hear me fine?
Nick.
Do we have any tech issues? Can you hear me okay? We're okay. Good. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Nick Graham. And yeah, as mentioned, COVID was the trigger for this report, and it triggered a lot more besides, of course, some good and some not so good. So it showed us how interconnected we are. It showed us the importance of human connectivity, and it also led us to question perhaps the need for growth or different definitions of growth. So we asked our audience of experts across sectors, and you'll see the sectors mentioned across the top here. We asked them, what is the impact on skills, and when will that impact be significant in your sector? So here you can see, for example, in transport and logistics, there's consensus that, across all experts, that the COVID factor of security rules in production and delivery, everyone agrees that that's significant already this year. By plotting these across the decade, we asked this question throughout the decade ahead of us, we can predict when these factors will have significant impact on skills, so disrupting or widespread use. So obviously remote working and the hygiene rules are in place now, but the impact on skills is predicted to be more felt next year in terms of reduced spending and unemployment. And then the year after, as we see the shift towards more, let's say, national domestic supply chains, that's going to impact skills in 2020, 2022. So what does that mean for skills? We're in the age of acceleration. So we talked already about the need for resilience and agility and adaptability. And we saw this, if you could just go back to the previous slide. Yeah, we saw this in education with the almost overnight switch to online. Was this the biggest large-scale transition in education history? At an individual level, we also see the need for self-awareness and self-soothing and mindfulness. Next slide, please. So here we get into the details. Actually, this is a highlight of the sectoral analysis of factors affecting skills. You'll see, again, the sectors across the top and ranked 1 to 5. Each sector actually had up to maybe 40 factors. So here you'll see, just pay attention to the colors. The colors, red is for COVID, and you'll see COVID as #1 across almost all sectors, with the notable exception of agriculture and ecology, which critically is seeing issues in biodiversity loss, in poor quality soil and food as the #1 factor affecting skills. What does that mean through the decade? Let's take a look at 2030 and then the picture that how that changes. We can move to the next slide. And you'll see different colors emerging here. That doesn't mean that the factors from 2020 have disappeared. It just means that these are the rising factors through the decade. So a lot more blue, which is technical and digital. So we see number one across all sectors, the first column, robotics and cobots, as discussed earlier, but also AI and blockchain driving supply chain transparency and new ways for us to interface with our automated friends through touch and brain interfaces. Number 5 on the cross-sectoral list is eco-production modes becoming essential and driven by legislation. Let's have a look at the kind of synthesis of what this drove across analysis of factors, of skills, and of different scenarios that are emerging. So here we see the transition described in 3 horizons. And I just want to focus first on horizon number 2, which is the digital and smart. So this is something we all witness every day. And this is where everything is programmable, hyperconnective, and cybersecurity becoming a critical skill for us all through the decade. And interestingly, for the education field, new social classes emerging as defined by tech literacy. So we also saw other emerging paradigms through the decade. In particular, the creative paradigm, where we move from standardized produce to more creativity-infused products. And this is again driven by tech, democratizing access and enabling everyone and anyone to become a creator. We build on our work on previous reports around mass uniqueness, which assumes that everyone produces and creates things that are unique, such as skills and careers. And we see that creativity and uniqueness will be the key value driver for the decade. Linked to this is the experience-based economy as we transition away from alienated consumerism towards more participative economic models where the consumer can become the producer and the co-creator. And this also links to the more networked and complex economic paradigms as we move away from linear and simple. This is represented by the growth of distributed organizations and ecosystems. And as driven by COVID, the move towards more relocalized, domestic, resilient production ecosystems and local communities as defined sometimes by bioregions, such as a river watershed. And this is all in the context of the decline this decade, the decline of the industrial one-size-fits-all model. And in education systems, this is kind of reflected by the move away from exam factories and curriculum-centered models. We're seeing green shoots rising already, and this is going to come more to the fore in the middle and towards the end of the decade as the more dominant horizon, the regenerative, the green horizon. And this is where we move away from business as usual. I think COVID is hopefully showing us that that is yesterday's usual. And we move away from extractive capital-centered models where you take something, you make it, you use it, and you lose it. We're now shifting towards more circular models, more transformative and regenerative. Regenerative is beyond sustainable and actually making things better. So long-term and holistic outcomes such as donut economics, which the city of Amsterdam has recently adopted. So next slide, please. If the 20th century market economies were capital-centered, and today modern economies become human-centered, what does that mean? Well, in the age of automation, we double down on the skills that we humans do better than our automated friends. So that's things like empathy, ethical judgment, adaptability, foresight, creativity, and critically building relationships. So that's going to enable us to survive, but do we want to thrive in the 21st century? So then we need to shift to this life-centered and relational model, relation to ourselves, to others, to the place that we live in, and to life of all forms. But this was the voice of the community. It's a crowdsourced effort, so let's hear some voices from that community, and I'll hand you back to the studio.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Pavel, for this first part of the presentation. But actually, before we're going to move on to the educational and skills perspective of the whole of this work and the whole this research, let's actually discuss it a little bit from the perspective of industry. Because for us, it always was absolutely crucial to have the support from industry, that the industrial partners are actually behind everything that's happening in the WorldSkills. In Russia, we are proud to have more than 700 companies supporting WorldSkills in Russia. And of course, here today we have a representative from the Global Industrial Partner from the WorldSkills International as well. So now I would like to invite to the discussion Dr. Nader Imani, Head of Global Education, FESTA Didactic, and Mr. Alexander Gorbachev, NCA Lab founder and consulting engineer, and also WorldSkills Europe Test Project Development Team Lead in skills number 39 for ICT specialist. So, Nader, my first question would be to you. First of all, as I already said, thank you a lot for your support. And in WorldSkills, you always bring a lot of innovation, not only the skills where you're involved, but FESTA is always really active participant on all of the discussion about how the technology is changing, how skills are changing, and also you and your colleagues from FESTA took part in this research. So please, can you share with us some of your thoughts, why such type of project is important, maybe what does it mean for FESTA, for WorldSkills, and maybe some thoughts in general of how the FESTA sees this transformation that guys just shared.
Thank you, Ekaterina. Let me start by saying also very pleased to be the speaker of the industry, or to be a voice of the industry in this report. The major happening of the 2020 global worldwide, basically in other words, COVID-19, has been fundamentally a catalyst of already a double disruption that we were facing before, namely digitalization and greening. So digital economy means whatever can be digitalized will be digitalized, and whatever can be automated will get automated. So this has definitely an impact on the labor market in terms of new emerging jobs, as it has been mentioned before, and professions like data scientists, digital analyst, augmented virtual reality developer, IT security technicians. But I would just also say Internet of Everything designer, like machines and machines communication, human and human communication, but also mainly human and machine in any sequence all along the horizontal and vertical integration of supply chain. But this will lead also to reduction of working hours. That means also offering working flexibility and diversity. In other words, probably leading also to change of employment landscape for labor law and contractual relationship in between employers and employees. So that's a tremendous change in terms of how we are going to work in the future. But let me also talk about green economy means that green skills or green of skills, like in Industry 4.0, we were talking about energy and resource saving, but also in terms of emerging green jobs, like water technicians, like carbon auditors. A shift from profitability is the sustainability, that was the mantra of the before time, to the sustainability is the profitability. This will be the mantra of a corporate world as part of the CSR, or like being an employer of first choice, war of talents, right to play in the global stage, or a mission to exist as a company. But let me also continue to say that all above would not really happen only under the umbrella of a socially and ethically acceptable frameworks of country social and corporate governance, like reaching overarching global goals like the UN Sustainable Development Goals by the Agenda 2030, or a right of decent life for all, adaptability and scalability of wealth for everyone, global empathy, social capitalism. And this is the wording that have been really taking or borrowing from the Future Skills 2.0 report. This will include learning opportunities, or has to include learning opportunities for all along life, and the learning offering in our living environment, whether in the urban areas or in the schools or in our home or at our work. Lifelong learning will be the vector for the future. And all that, of course, it would be under the human interaction that will be always there. I think what is not going to be replaced by the digitalizations of the processes is the human emotions, until this will be probably there and still driving our future.
Thank you, Nader. And I think actually, this feeling, this human emotions, this is something that usually people really love about the WorldSkills competition, when we all hope it's going to come back to the new normal at least, and we're all going to be able to meet again personally someday. But still, to stay relevant, I think it's also important to remember what you just mentioned, to bring this lifelong learning paradigm, and to bring this green skills and digital skills update, not only in the digital skills itself. Alexander, we're going to discuss it with you in just a second. So not only in ICT skills, but basically in all of the skills, because if I heard you correctly, this kind of digital and green component become a major and important in almost all of the skills.
Precisely. And I wanted to also emphasize it because in our report we are talking about, and Nick is going to share that in a few moments, that we are talking about two types of skills. We are talking about the ones that are sectoral focused, really specific job roles. We're talking about fundamental skill set that every worker should acquire. And among those skills are digital skills and, of course, green skills.
Yeah, so Alexander, you as an expert, international expert in actually literally ICT skill and specialist, so how do you work on kind of being sure that your skill is staying relevant? How the WorldSkills experts worldwide are working towards it? And was this report and this work in any form useful for you?
Hi, everyone. I think you can hear me, right? So thank you so much for the invitation. And before I address this question, so I really would like to thank the WorldSkills Russia and Global Education Futures teams for this tremendous amount of work, because this is really important for accelerating the change today. And for me, it was a great pleasure to be a part of this research. So I can say that this report really highlights and brings together a lot of trend that are currently, I would say, in the air. So now we can see the full picture and the number of right directions that we can take to develop the business and education. So speaking of the directions, actually, I really noticed that this is the very high quality of mediation between the jobs and skills landscape paradoxes, where people often like to discuss some extreme scenarios when they think about the future. So people who will read this report should have very right perception of like how this landscape is changing right now and which fundamental skill sets become more and more critical today and tomorrow. So overall, I can say that this work contains enough information to manage and which is really important to empower people expectations regarding the skills change demand both in business and in education. So this is because these positive outcomes described in a very common language for a lot of people. So I believe the chief executives and boards of educational institutions most likely will start to think about their investments in these changes after getting familiar with this work. So regarding the WorldSkills, I really hope that this information will help our expert community, and especially in ICT sector, to transform the way that we organize in our skills competitions in terms of problems being solved and how these solutions actually evaluated. And this is really important because our skill competition is almost 20 years old, and the test projects mostly are related with support and maintenance of the traditional infrastructure, so-called. So we as a community, I think we should move our focus towards the emerging technologies and really ask our young professionals to spend more time for delivering innovation and creating value for the business. So, and use more these technologies like intent-based networking, cloud computing infrastructure models, and cybersecurity engineering. So in conclusion, I really like to highlight that improving your work is much more important than doing your daily work. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexander and Nader, for the industry perspective, for the voice of industry. We hear you loud and clear. And on this moment, let's move on to the actual skills and educational part of the research. So Pavel, Nick, the floor is yours again.
So I want to welcome Nick again to start the presentation of the second part. Nick, over to you.
So let's have a look at the results of the surveys and the sessions. And we can see here on screen, just to guide you through this, the clusters, the yellow that you see predominantly is social and relational skills, and green is green, blue is tech, and orange is more skills of self. So you'll see in the first column, number one skill across the board for all sectors is collaboration. And you'll see that specifically number one in 3 sectors. And then the other key skills for right now, today, facilitation, ethical thinking, critical thinking, understanding our biases, cultural and diversity, and then critically learning how to learn and unlearn. I wish I was taught that at school. One other interesting thing to note here is in construction, we see 3 green items with recycling and rebuilding and retrofit design as number 1. What does that mean for the future of your work? Let's have a look at the situation in 10 years' time, as predicted by our experts. And just to point out here that these skills, you'll see a lot more blue skills, which is tech, but they don't replace the skills from 2020, from today, but they're more the rising skills that become, that emerge through the decade. So we can see Internet of Things as number 1 across the board as an average kind of consensus. Other key items to point out here, I can't quite read that. It's a little small for me. Can we go full screen, please? So number 2, we've got AR, so augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. Let's go back to the previous slide, just finish off on that. Thank you. Yeah. And number 3 is the regenerative and green skills that we talked about. So life cycle analysis, looking at all outcomes, not just economic, but also including human and ecological outcomes. And then number 5 on the list overall across all sectors is this multidisciplinary, cross-sectoral role, catalyzing change across silos, also known as a weaver. Let's take a look at the next slide, please. So here is the kind of the synthesis of all of those skills that appear across all sectors. So you can imagine in each sector there are a lot of specifics that are only relevant for that sector. But here you'll see the kind of the 4 clusters that we identified with those experts. And just to be clear, there are some fuzzy boundaries here. But in general, we see these 4 clusters with the orange group being the skills of self. So how do we relate and survive in a complex world? So these are the creative, critical thinking and adaptability and multidisciplinary learnings. Then also on the human side, we've got the yellow cluster of relational, social, economic and cultural. Just to call out here the increase in user-centric approaches. Entrepreneurship is going to become critical, especially with COVID putting lots of people out of work. And I think social emotional learning is clearly on the rise these days. Then on the more technical side, you've got your digital skills in blue, digital fitness applying to everyone. So how do we manage and take conscious control of our well-being through our digital interactions? And it's also underpinned by the more traditional logic and reasoning and math skills. Then in green and what we call universal well-being, this applies to some of the things we've mentioned already around sustainable and regenerative, but also how we connect to nature, reconnect to nature. I mean, we are all nature, and in fact, everything is nature. And also greater awareness of mental well-being and other people. So what does this mean for you? What does this mean for education and training? Let's go back to Pavel in the studio.
Thank you very much, Nick. And what indeed this means for education and training. So in our study, we dedicated a lot of time to actually exploring that question. In every sector, we invited specialists from that sector that work with education and training to explore the facets of this new emerging model of education specifically applied to their sector. Indeed, we get a lot of sector-specific results and variety across sectors, but we also get a lot of consensus around new trends emerging in education. But let me first talk to some of these sector-specific results, and they are probably most evident in the topic of curriculum. What needs to be taught to students in order to be successful in every sector? And of course, there's huge variety across sectors because sectors are different. They are working with different types of skills, with different types of products. There are also some, let's say, recurrent topics. And it's very evident from this slide that let's call it meta skill number one is adaptability. It's an ability to be open, to have an open mindset, to be ready to learn, to change yourself, and to move with the change and thrive with the change. This is an attitude. This is also a set of skills that each learner needs to cultivate. Then two other topics that really came strong across sectors are related to the moving to green types of work, the green growth, and all kinds of environmental knowledge and skills that should be brought into industries are number two across sectors. And number three is digital. Digital, indeed, we are talking that this is one of the drivers of change today. So people need to know quite clear what is artificial intelligence, what is data, how to use it in their work. But this is just the top three lines of a very long list of what needs to be included in the curriculum. And let me cover some additional aspects of what needs to be changed. So what also came quite strongly when we started to ask educators about the critical changes in the curriculum, they really highlighted that the mindset change, not just the skill set change, but the mindset change is one of the top things that we need to bring into education. And what is on the top of mindset change is flexibility and openness again. And also critical thinking and system thinking. These are, again, meta skills that allow us to cope with complexity of the world and to thrive in the world. In addition to that, of course, we need to cultivate technological skills, sustainable skills related to climate change, to regenerative practices, and so on. And of course, socio-economic and socio-emotional skills that help us collaborate with others, build up teams, develop trust with one another, and empathize with one another. How can we do it? We cannot do it unless we introduce a very comprehensive process that changes not only curriculum, but also pedagogies, also the assessment of what learners do, and even frameworks that we are using to support these new learning processes. Among the assessment topics that came quite strongly, it was emphasized that we need to start measuring human skills, including kindness and empathy. We need to learn how to measure creative capacity and life skills. We also need to develop assessment systems that are transnational and allow us to carry the knowledge from one national system to another. In terms of framework, I hope this will also be covered by some expert voices in the session, but we need to hold some new integrating model for this change. And this model indeed is coming up, and it's called learning ecosystem. So it's a way of organizing education when many diverse providers can collaborate with each other, supporting the lifelong learning process of every professional. When we focus on what teachers need to develop, there were two really important clusters of changes. So one of them relates to this movement to more flexible and more virtualized type of learning. And of course, teachers need to be flexible with it. They need to know how to use digital tools of learning, how to teach remotely, different kinds of skills, even including soft skills. And therefore, in terms of teacher training, we of course need to prioritize knowing how to teach digitally and in blended learning methodologies. But in addition to that, we need to know how to help people collaborate better, how to empower students to be lifelong learners, how to learn together with them. So teachers need to become model learners for future technologies. They need to start learning together with others, with students. So collaboration with students is among the key tools for that. And they also need to motivate and empower students to become lifelong learners and explore this changing and fantastically shaping up world of future skills. So this can be done if we support team-based learning and holistic learning, which considers not only one cognitive aspect or hard skill aspect of learning, but really a comprehensive model of a learner. And of course, in our report, we provide a very detailed set of implications, what it means for all kinds of roles, all kinds of players that are interacting with educational sector, including teachers, administrators, NGOs, policymakers, local and global business partners. But I would like to highlight just some of these things. So for teachers, this is, of course, a challenge that teachers, first of all, have to undertake. They need to learn how to teach in different way, how to teach students to become lifelong learners, empowering them, encouraging collaborations between them. They need to become model learners and learn how to master these new technologies. They need to create networks, local, national, and global, that support development of new methodologies, of new teaching resources, and so on. So let's say the transition of educational system will, to a large extent, depend on the action of teachers. It will also depend on the support and action of administrators, of colleges and universities that need to create spaces for experimentation, trying out new kinds of future skills, including, for example, fab labs, where you have all kinds of experimental production facilities to try out new types of skills and teaching methodologies. They need to learn how to collaborate better, using possibilities of local and global businesses, creating hybrid learning environments which connect the college with business, with outdoor learning in the city, with online learning, and so on. They need to create opportunities for apprenticeship and really important opportunities for real-life problem solving. This is something that connects student learning with practice. They need to also use the power of communities. So a lot of these things sound innovative, they sound expensive, but really, if you pool resources with other players, other colleges, with businesses, then it's easy for the community to create opportunities for creating these future skills facilities together. Policymakers, they can, again, do a lot, but maybe the one thing is to encourage the shift, to deregulate the sector whenever possible, so they do more experimentation, support the experimentation, especially around new pedagogies and assessment, and also learn how to be more holistic, learn how not only to talk about, let's say, academic success, but really talk about accountability of education and training sector for the success of economy and society, including green growth, including creation of just and inclusive society. And of course, all of the players can learn how to work in the ecosystemic paradigm together and become what we call ecosystemic leaders, people who are able to catalyze this new model of lifelong learning, where many players are supporting lifelong growth and interaction between all types of learners, individual learners, and also communities of learners for professional success and for impact. So I want to conclude with, first of all, with saying that this is just the tip of an iceberg of what we've done, but this is also a beginning of a conversation. This is not, let's say, a tombstone for the conversation. This is the opening. This is more like a portal for conversation where all of us can begin to shape this topic, the topic of what are the future skills. And we invite all of you who now listen to this presentation to contribute, to give your commentary, to ask our materials, to provide your opportunities for collaboration. Please reach out to WorldSkills Russia at rda@worldskills.ru. This is the address of Research and Development Alliance of WorldSkills focused on future skills. And the inspiring quote that we found that I think really conveys the message of this report, it was written by Octavia Butler, who says that tomorrow is a child of today, so we best think about it and best shape it into something good. Same as with our children. So education is the way to create better society, and I think this is what we are able to do together.
Thank you, Pavel and Nick. Well, I would say that it was always mission impossible to actually trying to cover 230 pages in 20 minutes presentation, but you've done a great job trying it. So guys, I hope that we inspire you to spend some time to actually reading the report, because it's actually included a lot of details in all of the 7 sectors, yeah? So, but right now I would like us to move to the expert discussion part, now with the experts from more kind of skills and education part of our conversation, and I want you to introduce to you these guys. So today with us, Ms. Meera Jayaraman, representative of WorldSkills expert faculty from India. Hello, Meera. Mr. Roy Ramirez Quesada, technical delegate to WorldSkills of Costa Rica. Roy, hello. Ms. Victoria Haro, co-founder and leading weaver of University of the Environment in Mexico. Victoria, hi. And Ms. Alina Daskanova, Deputy Director General for International Relations of WorldSkills Russia, technical delegate to WorldSkills, and newly elected board member of WorldSkills Asia. Alina, hello, and first of all, congratulations to your new role, your position. Really, really great news. But actually, before we're gonna jump into the discussion with the experts, we also have a video from Ms. Victoria Levin, senior economist in the Education Global Practice and a co-lead of the Skills Global Solution Groups of the World Bank, who unfortunately cannot connect with us today, but she sent us her video with some thoughts about the research and this work in general. So please, let's see the video from Victoria first.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak at this presentation of the new report focused on future of skills, and congratulations to the team on this important accomplishment. The report tackles important questions about the rapidly changing nature of work and the resulting rise in the demand for new skills or new skill combinations that we often discuss with our counterparts all over the world. There is broad recognition that workforce productivity is very important for economic development. This is why many countries put skills development on the top of their policy agenda. The influence of megatrends that are described in the report have called for rethinking and reimagining of how education and training systems can deliver the new skills that are demanded of the current workforce. And the COVID-19 pandemic has intensified the challenges of workforce training, demonstrating for many countries the importance of the digital divide and the lack of resilience and crisis preparedness. The current crisis highlighted the urgency of tackling these systemic challenges and gives us an opportunity to discuss innovative solutions. I will briefly reflect on some of the report's findings and how they align with the emerging priorities that we see for the education and training sector. The survey of experts revealed that virtually all sectors, the most impactful training area was a transversal cognitive or social-emotional skill, rather than a sector-specific skill or occupation-specific technical skill. It was interesting to see that adaptability is one of the top 3 training areas for all sectors except agriculture and ecology. Indeed, we have seen increasing recognition by employers and policymakers of these skills' role in boosting productivity. The next question that we usually deal with is how to better develop those skills. The strong foundation, of course, is built on good nutrition and stimulation during the early years and quality basic education. But education systems in many countries leave students with significant gaps in foundational skills. The good news is that neuroscience tells us that skills can be developed throughout the life cycle. So the skills gaps that we observe can be remedied with proper training. To do this, we need to start with robust assessment of these skills to understand the competencies and skills that each student brings to the skills training programs. And then we need to deliver better cognitive and social-emotional skills using both classroom-based and experiential learning approaches. Another emerging trend in education and training sector, noted in the report, is the rise of the blended learning approaches. COVID-19 necessitated introduction of such approaches even in contexts that had not even imagined it before. And we can learn from the lessons that we've received in the recent months on how to improve and refine these approaches. And we should keep them, though, even after this pandemic. The goal is for learning opportunities to be available to all students anywhere and at any time. And remote or blended learning approaches can help us expand access to learning to students who may be working or may have family responsibilities. And this way we can improve equity. Finally, the report recognizes the essential role of collaboration between education and training providers and employers. And I really appreciated how the report provides actionable steps for each partner in this collaboration. Education and training providers can engage employers in a variety of ways, from collaboration on skills needs to provision of work-based learning to students, to upgrading instructors' industry skills. And in return for all these efforts, employers can expect to have graduates who are better prepared to join their firms. Of course, there are many more insights that the report offers and that I cannot cover in these brief comments. But I look forward to seeing how the Future Skills project develops in the upcoming months.
Well, thank you, Victoria. We always really value the support from the World Bank in our projects. And right now, I want to actually pass to Mira, because Mira, I think besides the organizational team, you were one of the most active participants of all of the session, and we really value the expert faculty involvement in this project. So can you please share with us actually like why you decided to spend so much of your time to this project, why you believe it is important, and how actually the WorldSkills expert community to use it? Mira, I think we cannot hear you. Let's check the connection. I think still no. Okay, our technical team, can we check the connection of Mira? Should we move on and then come back to Mira? Okay, so Mira, please re-enter to your as a speaker. And now we will continue and we'll come back to you in a second. So in this case, Roy, my next question would be to you. Yes, but now we can hear you. Roy, wait for a second. Mira, back to you. So what about expert faculty and how the experts can use such type of inputs?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I'm Mira from India, the representative for creative arts and fashion from the WorldSkills Experts faculty and expert with over 21 years of work experience in retail design, visual merchandising, retail training, store operations, and management. As a participant in all the sessions of Future Skills 2.0, it feels great to be here today. Over the last 2 decades, as I've watched my sector, retail, upgrade rapidly and steadily and move from brick and mortar to online shopping, I've always felt the need for an activity like Future Skills. Thank you so much, Kate, for reading the minds of us experts so well and coming up with this brilliant initiative. In and of itself, Future Skills 2.0 was an amazing project, but such projects are also very crucial for WorldSkills to keep upgrading their standards and ensure that they are not just relevant to the present, but also ahead of the times. Such endeavors will always ensure that WorldSkills looks like a true leader in the world of skills. The planning of the project structure was the backbone to this document. Attention to detail with regards to the format that involved bringing together experts from all over the world was a very intensive activity implemented to perfection. I would now like to very briefly talk about a few significant emerging trends and their practical application in the WorldSkills competitions in some form or the other. An important emerging trend predicted in all the sectors is the increasing usage of digital technology and artificial intelligence. From building information modeling to precision agriculture using robotics, the increased use of automation is predicted to be a significant transformation going forward. Therefore, increased usage of digital technology in the WorldSkills competitions across all skills, including ones that have minimal or no usage at present, would be a great step forward. Apart from many more futuristic trends predicted, what really stands out for me personally is the consistent emphasis on the well-being of people and the planet across all skill sectors. Therefore, it is no surprise that sustainability is a very prominent theme in every sector. We do have sustainability as an important feature in the competitions, and we can now look at placing greater emphasis on it. From minimal wastage and usage of sustainable raw materials in the infrastructure list, we can also look at quantifying and assessing factors like energy consumption. Some skills that have more than one test project in the competition can consider recycling and reuse of the raw materials in some way, shape, or form. Now, well-being of the people is another very important feature, from robotic innovations for the elderly and needy to healthier options in the culinary skills and protective gear in fashion. Test projects can be designed around similar themes and ideas. In the creative arts, especially in skills like window dressing, the themes of the window displays can be conceptualized on humanitarian and social causes with impactful messages. Well-being of the people also with regards to emerging working practices in the industry and workforce could be considered in the WorldSkills occupational standards. In closing, I would like to thank Kate for the opportunity to participate in this amazing initiative. And I would like to thank Katrina for all the valuable guidance and support provided throughout the process. And I would also like to thank Pim, Pavel, Nick, and the team at Global Education Futures for a great experience. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mira. Well, you cannot imagine. I mean, it's always like so much joy, to work with you. It was so great to see you during the whole session. Each project with you is really, lightened with your energy and enthusiasm. And I think sometimes, like people asking like how you actually can bring innovation into the system and so on, which is so conservative. Well, this is actually how, through the people who care. Thank you, Mira.
That's why we also say that teachers are really crucial, including, of course, expert teachers like Mira, who can teach other teachers. They are crucial for the change that we are bringing.
Exactly. So, Roy, your team from Costa Rica also was an active participant of plenty of sessions. So can you please now share with us some of the perspective from the Costa Rica? Maybe again, how it can be implemented, maybe on the national level, maybe on the level of colleges, maybe for the WorldSkills. So what's your thoughts?
Thank you very much, and greetings from Costa Rica, and thank you for having me. It has been really an honor and enormous learning experience to have participated in this research. This valuable process that has led WorldSkills Russia and Global Education Futures, as well as other initiatives that have been developed during 2020 by different member countries, I think has demonstrated the great capacity of resilience of WorldSkills movement. So today, more than ever, it is vital to have mechanisms that allow us to anticipate the demands and the competences that every person should have to favor the attention of the challenges of the 21st century. So technical skills are indeed the engine of the economy in our era. It is necessary to know and to anticipate the changes of the economies and the labor market models to be able to favor the construction of technical growth opportunities and promote lifelong learning. So research like this one, prospecting research, allow us to anticipate from this, a flexible and adaptable model of education must be implemented. I think that this Skills 2.0 process has been extremely valuable from the very core of its design and organization and the methodology used, within which I would like to emphasize the conception that knowledge is built in a collaborative way under a value chain logic, in which, as happens in the labor market, the different occupations are interlaced and complementing in a continuous cycle of work and improvement. So what was very interesting in this process is that from this process we not only learn it through the knowledge we build, we learn it through the work model itself. So our experts, for example, in Costa Rica, learned the value of generating spaces for exchange of multidisciplinary knowledge, the relevance of performing tasks in cooperation with others, and the value of having a breadth of knowledge. So this study is not only marking a clear path of the determining skills for each sector, but it's also tell us in a clear way which skill has stopped being a plus and become from now on transversal skills for every occupation. And it is the case of digital skills, green skills, as my colleagues before me was mentioning, which are already basic skills for all sectors, and of course human skills. So the results of this report are completely aligned and come at the right time for us in WorldSkills Costa Rica and in the National Learning Institute, INA, that is the institution that represents WorldSkills in Costa Rica, since it fits both the work that is being done under INA's new curricular model, as well as the work itself in foreseeing that the institution has been done during 2020. So I think that every member, and actually we are going to use the results of this study as an input for the updating of our programs and training, understanding that today more than ever it is clear that the borders are disappearing in a globalized world, and that what we have known for years as a local market is indeed now global market. So under this principle, we see how the exchange of goods and services transcend and redefine borders. So the construction of our technical training models must consider the inclusion of international standards that allow the generation of technical human talent according to the new challenges. So use just local criteria to define our bet is not enough anymore. Our learning model, online learning, the promotion of work-based learning, the promotion of project-based learning focuses on the solution of real problems through multidisciplinary teams, should be part of the new ways of learning. So this means that the development of processes for strengthening and update the quality of vocational teaching are key. So here, exercises like this one and the methodology that was used in this study, where national experts join in multidisciplinary teams to discuss specific topics, identify good practices, is really a very valuable opportunity to implement in 2021 and take advantage of WorldSkills human capital by creating true knowledge sharing networks. So I would like to motivate member countries to take and analyze the results of this study so that we can work on the configuration and updating of different skills and improve the standards, promoting the adaptation of and improvement of our national bed system, and with it that WorldSkills continue being the driving force and a world reference of best practices in skills in the pursuit of excellence. So many thanks to WorldSkills Russia, Global Education Future, and WorldSkills International for this very valuable contribution to our systems in favor of the development of technical human talent. So many thanks. Greetings from Costa Rica and Pura Vida.
Thank you, Roy. Actually, something that you share right now was inspiring us in the beginning, because this is something that's crucial to remember, that the WorldSkills is not only a competition itself. This is the top of the iceberg, what people usually can see as a large, major, really significant event, but it's also an amazing network of hundreds and hundreds of professionals who actually work with each other and can learn from each other.
Yeah, and I would like to support what you're saying, Ekaterina, and also what Roy has been saying, is that indeed engaging in this kind of conversation is very, very fruitful. Because the process by which people collectively discover what will be the future of skills is also the process by which they start to build up that future. Because they already reach some consensus, they reach some agreements, and may move from this idea into practical implementation. So I really support the effort that Roy was making to bring his experts into this conversation. I also want to commend what Costa Rica is doing, because Costa Rica in some regards is on the frontier. For example, it does a lot of amazing work around the green economy, regenerative economy. It's one of the world leaders in this domain. So I think we should look across the world to learn from each other, because sometimes these new paradigms, they don't emerge in the usual suspects, not in Japan, not in the US, they emerge in other places.
Thank you, Pavel. So, Victoria, so as a co-founder of the University of Environment in Mexico, which actually sounds really intriguing, and as not there in the first part of the conversation already mentioned green skills and the importance of green skills. Can I assume that as an expert with such kind of University of Environment background, you also would like to share a few thoughts about the importance of green skills? Am I right?
Yes. Thank you very much, Ekaterina. Thank you, Pavel. Thank you for the invitation. A pleasure to be here speaking about the nice skills that we could have. We could also have the report of all the horrible skills that we would not like to have. So in terms of the green skills, much has been already said about what they are and what they could be used for. And it's mainly, I think, it's about aiming to evolve human civilization from a civilization that is having a negative impact in natural ecosystems to a civilization that is having a intentional regenerative impact in natural ecosystems, so that we are learning how we can actually regenerate the ecosystems around us. But green skills are not only about understanding how ecosystems work and how we can go from negative impact to a regenerative impact. It is also about learning how to connect to nature, as Pavel was saying, and developing personal practices of connection, of knowing. It is also about, for example, learning how to understand science without being a scientist, so that we can take decisions around how are we consuming, how are we producing, how can we change the way that we are living, and using the natural resources around us without having to depend on experts telling us how things should be done. So there is this one green skill that very often is not taken into account, which is the skill of becoming something like citizens of science, where we as citizens can also take part on the scientific debates and the scientific data that are given to us. Otherwise, we will become just kind of sheeps following what scientists are saying that we should do or we should not do. And democracy right now is going to depend a lot on ordinary workers and non-scientists to be able to question and understand what is the science around sustainability and regeneration, so that we can participate actively and critically in all this green movement. Pavel also asked me to talk about how can we teach green skills. And of course, those of us that are now founding environmental universities around the world, there are very few universities that are completely dedicated and focused on the environment. So we're teaching law and engineering and business administration, but all of these different careers within the context of social environmental studies. And our dream is that the name of something like a environmental university or a university of the environment should be obsolete in some years. All universities should be universities of the environment, in the sense that every single career should have green skills as part of their curriculum, because it doesn't matter what you're studying in any discipline. It is relevant that you understand how is your discipline impacting the natural ecosystems and how can we do it better. So it makes no sense to have universities of the environment eventually. Right now it is very important, and hopefully we'll have many of them around the world, like mushrooms coming up all over. And but the one thing I think that is very important in terms of how to teach green skills is this idea that has already been mentioned several times today, which is learning by doing. So what if universities were actually communities of practice, where we would go to experiment together? So not only to learn concepts and frameworks, but actually to experiment in groups. So we can go out, do things, and come back, share what we learned, and start developing the skill of learning collectively through experimenting, through doing, through finding out what does really work, what doesn't work. Critical thinking is not just something in your head. It's about doing it and finding out what works and what doesn't work. So if universities were communities of practice, then we would, from university, develop the skill of forming learning ecosystems, forming groups of people within which we can practice and find out and learn together. So the whole of the university could be a community of practice. But then when you go out of university, if you've been already doing this through your education, you would be willing and motivated and super skilled to just get together with your colleagues and form these action groups, action learning groups that further your skills. So that would be at least my vision of how could we organize ourselves in learning ecosystems around the world to further our green skills along with any other skills.
Well, thank you, Victoria. Actually, around a week ago, we had a similar session with the Russian universities. We were also discussing future skills with them. And I really hope that some of them are also watching us right now or can watch this in the record, because I think you actually said a few really inspiring points to the Russian universities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really was enjoying the statement that even kind of triggered my idea that when we're talking about the future, we should talk about three pillars of the human knowledge that need to support. It's like three minimal pillars that you can stably sit on, like with a chair, right? Something similar. So the pillar of technology that everyone talks about, this is the basis of a modern civilization. The pillar of humanity, humanness, kindness, connection, collaboration, and the pillar of green, which means reconnecting to planetary processes, reconnecting to nature, and learning how to be aligned with nature. So these three pillars are actually the future of our society. And I think it's also what our report highlights. This is exactly three aspects that we're talking about.
As I said in the beginning, for us, it was always really important to have this kind of two processes connected, this like theoretical, innovative foresight type of work, and our practical work, our experimentation with the different skills, different challenges, different formats. So this year, actually, we got super lucky because Russia was ahead of the BRICS group for this year exactly, of course. So a lot of our plans was not actually happening. It was not physically possible to implement them, but some stuff we were able to do. And so Alina here was the lead of the BRICS Future Skills Challenge, which despite all of the challenges despite all of the challenges and problems still happen and unite a lot of young, inspiring people from 5 BRICS countries. So before I will pass floor to Alina.
I think it's also important to notice that Russia was really innovative in using the existing reality of remote work.
We were trying,
to actually model how it is possible to create remote competitions, and I think that's part of the model.
Yeah, and let's see the short video before we will pass to the Alina's expert comment. Let's see the video how it's actually happened this year. So, Alina, I know that after our hybrid national final in September, we already had some solutions to actually try it with the BRICS colleagues as well. However, it's a major international competition. The BRICS was definitely a big success this year. So can you share with us, please, a few words, how it was organized and maybe some lesson learned?
Hello, Pavel. Hello, Ekaterina. Hello, everyone who is here with us today. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you. And first of all, congratulations to this accomplishment of the great work you are doing all the year. And congratulations with this public opportunity to make report of your work. So for us, what is important that COVID was a trigger for us, not just to go through this report, but start to implement key findings from this report step by step. And actually in Russia, Future Skills, it's not just research, but it's a holistic project. So research is a driver for us, and then we are trying to implement key findings through the competition and then bring to the education system. So 2020 for us was like a moment when future and present comes together, and even more, it was like a singularity point when even past, present, and future come together. And you know, because in past we ask our experts a lot of times, let's think about online competition, let's say think about online assessment, we can bring more people to take part in our activities. And you know, it was always, no, it's not possible, never, no digital assessment, it's competition, everyone on the venue, so it's not possible. And you know, this COVID challenge makes this transformation. So it makes happen from no to yes. So this is one point. And another one is motivation. Our experts, our community, the BRICS and international one, we are those who feel ourselves that we are people of the world. We like this communication, we like travelings. And for a moment when we have been like few, maybe some months in lockdown and hope that borders will be open, I think it was the moment that we understood that no, borders will be open this year, but we have motivation to touch the other part of the world. So this motivation and like worldwide challenge and worldwide motivation bring us to this moment when our knowledge assets come to materialization. So we bring this to our real life. And you know, like the key point, like Pavel already mentioned, that we are forming new learning ecosystems. And in this remote format, develops few models. For example, like we develop working place and give access to this working place for the people who are in the countries without such kind of resources which we have. And you know, it's like it was remote access for working place in drones. Like people can programming the drones, they send the code, and it was a flying ground, and it was possible to test the code. Then it was some other solutions like robotic welding. It was the same. Like, can you imagine, like people at home, there is no any possibilities, but we arrange and construct special venue, give this remote access to the people, and they was able to make this robotic welding online. And some other solution was like, we have talk a lot about digital factories in the Industry 4.0, and finally our experts have developed special digital platform to simulate the real production line. So it was amazing that people were so inspired that they make these solutions. And some solutions, and this solution, some conclusion, and it's really linked to what Pavel and Nick have talked about. So like remote communications become a generic skill for us. So I mean that now we have more generic skill than we can think about. And it was like, you know, we just had special sessions with each other to check our connection. So just few minutes session meeting from colleagues all around the world to check connection. And you know, I really feel that sometimes maybe we need this practice in our life for all of life to have this possibility to check connection with each other, to find this joint tune. And also Nick talk about that anyone is creator now. And I think that we really tasted that now we are creator, because even if you have possibility to remote access to new learning ecosystem and like new business model, but now we are responsible ourselves to create our working place, from home. So basically now we also can see that these generic skills is spreading. So now we have to know how to be more autonomy. We got more responsibility and more complex work. And really what is important, the link with like universal well-being. So this COVID showed us that nature is important, but it was difficult for us to understand nature is important, rather we meet with our nature. And sitting online in all these Zooms, in all these online platforms, to keep ourselves alive, we should find the way to feel our nature. So I think this year make us feeling more closer to the nature actually, rather than more away. So in conclusion, I would like to say that it's really great that we following like step ahead with research and step ahead with implementation. And also it's really great that because of this 2020, it's more people and a lot of countries who take part in research. So congratulations really that it's worldwide research. And I think that it's also great luck for us because our online format and remote format with multi-locations give opportunities for more people to join our activities. So I think this is really great result for all of us. So thank you for this and for collaboration.
Thank you, Alina. And I think your speech beautifully demonstrated this favorite phrase of one of our colleagues, life give you lemons, you make a lemonade. And what you say is right. We would never be able possibly to physically, bring all of this, like 800 people from 49 countries in the same room. You will need 10 years ahead to plan the schedule of all of those people, while in the remote format, it was possible. And I also really enjoyed this thought about the check and the connection between each other.
Yeah, and I think that this also highlights that really where we need to evolve this project is from, let's say, a one-off exercise. We need to turn it into a community that lives. And that's what we started to do together. We started to build up this community of people really interested in future skills who can both talk about it and practice it, like I think all of the experts that presented today.
Yeah, because they are practitioners, and although right now it looks like we're not going to have proper time to have a Q&A session, to have a discussion today, but I think we all had a lot of like food for thought. So I think we would just in the beginning of next year, in the January or maybe February, we would arrange the proper Q&A session with a deeper discussion with an expert community, first of all from WorldSkills and member countries, how we actually can practically implement it in the countries, in the local level, and internationally. So please join us in this cooperation. Do not hesitate to contact us if you want to cooperate in any forms, from the technical side, from the knowledge side, from the as a practitioner. In any forms, it's really, really welcome. So, Pavel, maybe some final thoughts from you?
No, I think what we had today as this conversation, as this discussion demonstrates how we want to build this up. It's indeed coming from voices of members of community, people that are working, let's say, at the forefront. They're really working with teaching people how to act differently, and they themselves are creating those innovations. And what we hear from the voices of expert community is that indeed this change is happening, and indeed, I would like to emphasize, the teaching of new skills is what gives us hope.
It's something like be a change that you want to see,
yes,
and all of this. And actually, so on this moment, we would thank all of our experts who find time. We really appreciate to join our session today. I would say physically, almost physically in this virtual studio. All of the viewers who watch us live. Sorry guys, it was a long session, and we want to finish the whole session with actually showing you the short video, and just to remind ourselves to smile a little, a few shots of actually how it was done during this inspiring and challenging at the same time COVID month. So thank you all guys, and let's watch the final video.
Thank you. Bye.
Which I'm sure will be super interesting. To achieve this exercise, and we'll have about forming and disappearing.
So we'll come to the last, I would say, section of
about 90 seconds has gone by, so it gives you a chance to read and
bottom left corner.
To introduce yourself, but we're going to do a proper check-in in a little.
I'm in Kaluga region, and
how can farmers and producers and people in the food system change their habits?
No, I will ask you if you have any issues. There will be our staff members in each room.
And what we want to do then?
Call for the host. I will see it and I will help.
Everyone, feel free to unmute and say hi and bye. Thank you so much.
To meet you. Bye.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Great facilitating, Jess, by the way.
Yes.
Well done for holding it all together.